I remember my birthday party. Church was out on the road. And everything went black.
It's okay now. Are you back?
Back from where?
What's going on?
There's a place Rach brings things back. Oh, your daughter.
Are you happy, Mommy?
I should never have shown you that place.
But you did.
If you cheat death, there's a price to be paid.
I needed more time with her.
Sometimes dead is better. If you've done something, Lewis, it's not too late to undo it.
Or Stephen King action.
Yeah, I'm so glad I started recording right before you said that.
Oh, good.
So that's how it's going to start.
Welcome, listeners, demons, legions, legionnaires, those with Legionnaire's disease,
Get
those who are in the French Foreign Legion.
all those people in the hot tub got Legionnaires.
Fans of the Fox show Legion.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
The League of Gentlemen, the Umbrella Academy. Hi. We're here to talk about Pet Sematary today. Not the remake, the new adaptation. Listeners, I just want to say something. Just because a movie exists, if it's based on a work of literature and they make another one, that is not this was not a remake,
right,
of Mary Lambert's movie, which is a great movie. This was a readaptation. That's just a pet peeve of mine. I just want to get it out of the way right off the bat. Because everybody's like, remake's not as good. It's not a remake. Stop saying that. If I know that some of you are doing this, I want you to look at your life and I want you to stop that now.
You know what? I'm going to put this out on the main feed because people need to hear that.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we all saw the new Pet Sematary together. I can't think of the directors' names. There's
they
duo.
did Starry Eyes.
They did Starry Eyes, which is a movie I really like.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone thought that this was going to be a spookier kind of take on Pet Sematary.
It's Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer.
Oh, Dennis Widmeyer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a familiar sounding name.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about it.
Yeah. We will get into some spoilers. So if you haven't seen this and you wanna, you should go.
I feel like the trailer spoiled a lot.
Oh yeah, spoilsies.
And the thing is, if you saw the original, there's only a couple of differences in this one.
Let's real quick, and I know we want to keep this sort of brief, but like, what do you think? Do you think the reason? Well, I know the reason that they released it in the trailer. They said was because they didn't want people to get there and like be angry. You know, they wanted to give
they wanted them to be angry ahead of time.
Well, they kind of wanted to give people a warning,
right?
I think they said that. I don't remember, but I think that was the idea that they wanted to warn people. And like it didn't matter to me one way or another, but it sure would have been quite a gut punch. Because I love that they teased it. So, listeners, before we get to the actual meat of this, they tease. Obviously, Ellie is the one that ends up getting hit by the truck in this movie and buried in the Micmac burying ground and coming back instead of Gage. But they have this great moment at Ellie's birthday party where the reanimated Church comes and tempts Ellie into the road because she thought he ran away. And Gage sees Ellie in the road and starts running to her as the truck's coming. And if you didn't know, you'd be like, fuck here it comes. And Jason Clarke, who plays Lewis, did that great, very similar kind of, it was a very kind of similar moment. I just got done saying it's not a remake, but I do think that a couple times they sort of nod to it.
Yeah.
And he runs after Gage, and he gets him, and then the fucking truck kills Ellie. And that's your surprise, but it's not a surprise because
also the truck stabs her to death. Yeah, I didn't see that coming at all.
No, it was definitely not. I didn't even know a truck could do that.
Yeah,
that was some hardcore CGI.
I was like, "What the truck?"
I was surprised at how small the knife was, considering how big the truck is.
It was kind of adorable until she died.
Mm-hmm. So
my only problem with the scene was the truck driver had a flip phone.
Oh yeah, well.
He's not gonna listen. He lives a simple life. He doesn't need.
It was a jitterbug.
I feel that if you're a trucker, that you want nowadays that you want a more modern phone because you're on the road all the time. You wouldn't be connected to shit.
This is true.
That's a good point, Andy.
Maybe this took place in the earlier 2000s.
Yeah,
we don't know.
They don't really say.
There's not a bunch of other tech that lets you know.
Well, all those frosted tips should have tipped me off.
If everyone had frosted tips, including Judd,
the Limp Bizkit that was playing in the soundtrack,
and everybody was wearing those double polos. Remember those?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pop collars.
Oh my god.
So who? Everyone in this room a fan of the original?
I love the original. It's one of my favorite horror movies. Actually,
I do too. I really love it.
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
I think it is. Well, you go first, then I'll say what I was going to say.
Ahead.
No, you go first.
You go ahead.
No, your answer is going to be shorter than mine.
Oh, I've never seen the original
dun,
or
dun, dun.
read the book.
So I would be most interested in hearing what you have to say about this movie before we get into anything else even.
Well, thank you, but let's let Kelley pontificate.
Oh, no, I really like the original
The whole show is going to be you two acquiescing to each other.
adaptation.
Stop being nice and start getting real.
No, you hang up. You hang up.
These two still love each other.
We do.
Barf.
I think it's one of the best Stephen King adaptations. I think it's actually really faithful.
You're talking about
the Mary Lambert version.
No, the Mary Lambert. Yeah. Actually, I think it's the number one best adaptation of his work.
Ooh.
I do really like the new It, but
I'm going to have to disagree.
What's your favorite?
Well,
Christine
is a great one, and I think I do like.
But there's some major elements missing from the film.
No, I agree with you.
In Christine,
but I know he really loves it.
There are, but I think they captured. Well, anyway, I think The Mist is a better adaptation of a Stephen King story. I think Stand By Me is a better adaptation. I think Shawshank.
I was thinking horror.
Yeah.
I think Misery is a better adaptation.
See, like I'm thinking straight horror. Like I wasn't thinking like
I think Dead Zone
I
is
was
probably a
thinking
better
about
adaptation.
It and Pet Sematary. Between those two.
Oh, I mean, if I'm roping in everything, if I'm saying graphic novels, I might even put Creepshow above Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
But as far as like straight horror based on full length novels, not novellas like this Joker over here is trying to do,
I still might like Christine better.
You know what kind of nerdy reasoning I just laid out is the kind of thing I pick on other people for doing.
No, I loved it, and you were only sort of joking. But I do.
I'm talking about the short story subgenre, in particular his poetry.
You've been on Reddit too much. You've become one of those people.
Now, if you want to say, is it more faithful adaptation? I think it is than Christine, but I think Christine's a better movie.
Mm-hmm.
And a better, like, overall, I think it captures...
It's better overalls.
The thing about the original, and then we can get on to
Oshkosh.
What we're here for. The original left out, I thought, the spookiness of the actual trip to the Micmac burying ground. Although it was spooky, like that plateau and like the big sky and everything. That was spooky, but they left out anything about the spirits in the woods and sort of the mystical elements of that swamp. And I was really missing that because it was my favorite thing from the book. But other than that, I think it got everything else right. Some of the goofier stuff with Pascal was not... It didn't ruin it for me or mess it up, but it was like I could take it or leave that.
Did you feel weird when like Dean Koontz came out with Dog Graves and he had the Macmic burial ground?
I was like, Dean.
Did he really?
Much.
Did he really do that?
No.
Oh.
I was thinking of Coming to America. They have the Big Mac.
We got the Big Mick.
So anyway,
So Doggrave doesn't have sesame seeds on it, and Pet Sematary does have sesame seeds.
Doggrave is flame broiled.
Sometimes I prefer that.
Sometimes they come back. Anyway,
sometimes flame broiled's better. Sometimes not.
So let's get to it. Let's jump in it.
Alise, you never.
So
this is your first encounter with Pet Sematary.
It is my first encounter. I've only ever read 2 Stephen King books.
Alise story and
and Pet Sematary wasn't one of them. And so I didn't know really what it was about at all. And I didn't watch any of the trailers.
That's cool.
That would have helped either. But yeah, so it's brand new for me.
So was it scary to you?
It was, it was. And I'm not someone who usually gets very scared by movies, but it was scary. There were a few things I didn't love about it, but it was good. I know that some people probably didn't like this, but I liked that it was just kind of quick and got to the point and got going. Because, like I was telling Kelley, I think with any movie that's based on a book, but particularly a Stephen King book, just because they're so freaking long, you can get bogged down in details that the fans will enjoy, but they don't necessarily move the plot along.
Yeah.
And this, there wasn't a point where I was like, oh my God, they're talking about the frickin' runes for 20 minutes. Or,
frack.
Yeah.
Make, patty whack.
Yeah. Or
goddamn nonsense is what it is.
Exactly. So this felt like
pants up and left.
That's right. And my better overalls. They didn't, if I didn't know that this was based on a Stephen King book, I would have just thought it was a movie based on a screenplay.
So you're thinking like a pretty good horror movie, or
yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Nothing to write home about. I'm getting from your tone, like you're like, dear mom and pa,
right?
I didn't see this.
I thought it was good. I mean, I thought it was fine. Yeah. There were things I didn't like. Like I didn't like, and I think Andy and I may be of a mind about this, but I didn't like how the wife seemed completely fucking bonkers and like unable to deal with anything. I think that was a combination of the writing and just the way she played the character. But there were just weird little things, like when he went to tell the kid that the cat ran away or whatever story he ended up telling her. He comes back in the bedroom and the wife's like, how'd it go? Like, why wouldn't you be there too? Like, why wouldn't, I don't know. There were just little things like that didn't quite add up for me, but I did like, I liked the overall concept, and it definitely was scary. And I know when we got home that night, I was extremely concerned about one of our cats because she wouldn't come in the house.
Not on that road.
Kelley. Can I mention one other thing that
Kelley
really
froze?
annoys me? Sorry.
He malfunctioned.
No. Okay, if you've got a house by a road where trucks drive down it at 65 miles an hour and you're a doctor, why wouldn't you build a fence? I'm just saying.
Because he's too busy. He's a doctor. He's like, look, I don't build fences. I reconstruct bicyclists.
That's true. This is true.
They put their heads back together when they fall apart, and sometimes not.
But it was good. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna ask a dumb ass question. Was that cat CGI?
I'm actually not sure. I mean, not all the time, but sometimes it did look kind of puppety. Yeah.
I really liked how it looked. I thought the cat looked awesome, and I, the little girl was super creepy.
She was really
great.
Good.
She was
great performance.
Yeah, she was great.
I, as a big fan of the original, there was a lot I missed, and the thing that you appreciate about it, that it's snappy and it moves along, to me played more as rushed.
Now
I can see that.
Yeah, you and I are on a page with this because this is one of the times where I feel like this is something that I wish they'd like settled into, really giving us the family dynamic, left in the tension between Lewis and Rachel's parents.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed the funeral fight scene from the original.
I think agreed. They kind of not like. I feel like they nodded to a lot of things. Like Lewis and Rachel's dad shared a couple of like looks, but if you didn't read the book or see the original, you would have no idea that was significant.
Yeah. I just had an idea for a video game when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funeral.
Pet Sematary.
Well,
is it called Funeral Fight?
It's Funeral Fight. Actually, it's
Punch Out Funeral Edition.
It's a bunch of movie fights that are not typical. Like you can match up the little boy from Steel Magnolias with Shirley MacLaine, and they all have special moves like in Mortal Kombat.
Oh yeah, it's like a Mortal Kombat Steel Magnolias edition.
Yeah. You have all that. Just anything you can think of. Kramer versus Kramer.
That'd be pretty awesome. I definitely thought that they could have spent more time. I think they should have spent more time building Judd and Lewis's relationship, because it felt very again in the book and in the first adaptation, they really, you understand why Lewis goes over and talks to Judd. They're already good friends when Judd takes him up to the the burying ground.
You understand, why the trust is already there.
This just felt like he's our neighbor and he's an old man.
The flip side of that, though, didn't you feel like? And I don't remember in the book if they really established that there was some sort of supernatural force compelling Judd to constantly feed the cemetery.
In the book, well, it's not constantly, but in the book, it definitely goes into the fact that the power of the burying ground reaches out as far as it can, and there's a pull, and that it will first of all, it will arrange things to give you. So it's like part of the point of the book was like, how far does the power of this place reach? Did it make that truck hit church?
Right.
Did it make that truck hit Gage? And those questions aren't exactly answered, but it's like, and they do nod to it in this, where Judd says, you come up with the sweetest reasons to pass it on. But again, I feel like it was so rushed in this that you kind of can't like sit back and think about that stuff.
Yeah, but they, again, in the original, they didn't address in the original film.
Yeah, no.
Like, because a lot of people had the question in the original, they'd be like, why does Judd... And that it even became a meme on the internet. Like, the reason everything bad happens in Pet Sematary is because Judd makes it happen. Why? And you're never given that. In this film, you are given. He states, it feeds on grief.
Mm-hmm.
And when you gets a taste of grief, it gives you hope. So you do something that creates more grief. So it gives you hope, and then you create more grief, kind of thing.
And that is in the book. That's a large part of the story is the far-reaching power of the burying ground. And they did get. This is what I was when I saw the trailer. I was really, really excited, and I really liked it. I can't say that I loved it, but I really did like this movie a lot, and I think. Like it tried very hard to get a lot of like little details that again I think they listened to what people maybe missed about Mary Lambert's version, and we're like, we're gonna give you some of that, like the barrier between the actual Pet Sematary and the swamp was exactly how it's described in the book. I mean, exactly. And I think they got that part more right. I think they threw the Wendigo back in. A lot of the spooky elements that were kind of taken out of Mary Lambert's version, they put back in, but then they left out a lot of what she did right, which was again taking more time, exploring the relationships a little bit more.
Yeah.
And my biggest gripe was that they left out the Timmy Baterman story, which is the Vietnam vet kid that came back, whose dad buried him up in the.
They reduced it to a headline shot.
Yep, that and the bull. Well, the bull was a head. Even in the book, that was a headline, but like not a headline. But
I love that whole bit in the original where they have to burn the place down and everything.
Yeah,
that was just great.
Well, the whole idea. One of the things I love about the book, and again, I don't even know if you can translate this to a movie, is just that like in this little town, there's like a number of people who for sure know. Like they've buried things there and had them come back.
Yeah.
Then there's like a larger.
I think I remember I took one of those Tamagotchi or whatever they're called.
Yep. You buried your Tamagotchi.
I didn't feed it.
You never had to feed it again, though.
Yeah.
They. So there's people who know for sure who've used it.
Pet rocks. That's an old road. I don't think anybody gets Pet Rock reference anymore. Sorry, Kelley. I didn't mean to derail your point.
No, you didn't. I was just waiting.
That'd be real cute though if the Pet Rock just dragged itself to your front door. Like,
well, we should make a short. We should bury a rock.
Well, you remember The Cat Came Back? The animated movie that people made to the song "The Cat Came Back."
That's the name of my first my Stephen King theme Doom song.
Oh,
which is real. I'm really doing that.
Yeah, I know. You told me. Now everyone knows.
Yeah,
the cat's out of the bag.
But yeah, so you've got this group of people who definitely know, and then there's like a widened group of people who like pretty much know, but you know they've not necessarily experienced it firsthand. And then I feel like there's like these widening circles of people who like there's probably people who've heard about something. It's just like this weird little town secret that's real. And like some people that live there maybe never heard of it at all, and then some people have buried family members there. It's just this really great. It's a thing that Stephen King I feel like does just better than anybody else. Is just sinking it into the ground and making it real. To
be real.
Anyway,
did you? There were elements that they brought that were in neither the novel or the original film, especially with Zelda and the dumbwaiter.
Yeah,
and I do get the complaint. As much as I like that dumbwaiter sequence, I think independently, and I don't know, you came to this with no baggage whatsoever, at least. So like when you see that dumbwaiter scene,
well, yeah, the dumbwaiter scene actually was one of the things I think I mentioned after. Like I don't like to pick apart movies and be like, that wasn't real or that's stupid, but it didn't make sense to me. Like she fell into it. Like I thought it would have been much better if it had just come down and like decapitated her and then her head rolled out, because then it's like, oh well, that's how it killed her. This,
and then
it was
Ellie
like,
picked her up by her feet and swung her around, and all the guts came out of her neck hole.
Something like that happened. It would also go a long way to explain why Rachel was always so
freaked out by everything. Yeah, because it was like, okay, so she fell on it and then died.
Yeah, she slipped getting her oatmeal. Did you talk at all about well, in the original there was a more significance to her death that they didn't account for in the remake.
She could have done something
to
maybe
she
help
choked
her, and she didn't.
Yeah, she didn't help her because she was a little girl, and also they left her home with her a lot to take care of her.
Yeah, which again, I feel like this movie tried to like make certain like small concessions.
Yeah.
To give fans stuff they were looking for. Again, like the articles.
Yeah.
Like that Lewis sees about previous things in Ludlow, and then I feel like they're trying to make with the dad sharing looks with Lewis, and then again with this where she's like, they left me home alone with her, and he's like, they never should have done that. But in the book, the whole point was that her parents were assholes who left her alone with this girl. And this was actually, I feel like he also did that. Like, this is sort of revisited from his short story, Grandma, about like a kid being left alone with a dying family member and kind of how traumatic that is. And so, and it's probably born out of him watching his mom die of cancer.
Right.
But it's just like this kind of throwaway line in this movie where it was a big deal because, that was a part of why her relationship with her parents is strained.
Right. And also it reinforces the theme of the movie, which is sometimes dead is better.
Yeah.
Like her life was
Zelda
so
was
bad.
Better off, yeah.
She was better off dead. And you don't have that feeling as much when you don't have that drawn out torturous life she had to live. She was never normal in the book that I remember. Like in the movie it seems like all of a sudden her spine was jacked up.
Right.
Like well, they didn't even tell you that it was spinal meningitis.
Right. Yeah, they didn't talk about
that was
it.
the first time she fell down the dumbwaiter. She
Damnedest thing.
I know.
Falls down the dumbwaiter, eyes go crossed. Hit by a tanker truck, eyes go running again.
She was doing backflips afterwards.
I know making movies is a complicated process, and sometimes things
simple at least
they get cut or changed inadvertently. But this did seem like a very conscious decision. I can't understand why they would change it from such a powerful scenario where she could have stepped in to save her sister and didn't.
The
Why
visual.
would they change that?
I think it was just for the visual element,
and it wasn't even that strong.
Well, I feel
well, plus then they can say she's in the walls, and it makes more sense to say she's in the walls.
I see. Well, and that too, that seemed like a weird add-on.
And it is definitely not like Rachel was never afraid as an. Well, I mean, again, she started to become afraid when things started to get weird, but in a very abstract kind of way in the book. So it wasn't like she heard noises in the house and was like, "Is that Zelda come back to get me?" That was made up for this, and I do wonder if they might have changed it partially too, because I feel like there's all these focus groups and people worry about how characters are going to be perceived in movie. I feel like writers don't worry so much. Like writers aren't afraid to make characters, I think, unlikable, and a lot of movie filmmakers aren't either. But like, I think when someone's trying to make a commercial movie, like they might have had there's probably some kind of committee meeting where they're like, oh, if we make her do that, it's going to almost seem like she's a murderer, and will people really relate to someone who's done that?
Yeah.
Well, I feel that's the problem I have with this movie. It felt too commercial. It felt too by the numbers,
which is weird, right?
No,
considering who made it.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's like obviously a horror movie. Every like from the visuals to the ending to everything. It was the one thing I liked about the original, the first movie, was that it was more subtle, and this was like, hey, it's a horror movie.
Right.
I see what you're saying. I didn't mind that, but I can definitely see what you're saying where like the color palette and the cues and the fogs.
Yeah, I know like horror movies aren't supposed to be grounded and more and realistic, but I feel the first movie was more grounded, and it was scarier to me. That's why it was scary to me, because it was so much more realistic than this movie.
It was. I mean, that is something that the first, I think, or the first adaptation did really well. Was that it did make so much happen in just broad daylight. It was very like it felt very grounded, very kind of real.
The motivations be for the characters' actions in the the first one, was more relatable than the new one.
Yeah,
it was just more. You can like just soak into the movie more and get.
I'll say that
get it more.
I do prefer the original, and I'll call it the original, if that's okay. Yeah. I know it's not a remake. What is it? It's a reimagining, like True Grit. But there were a couple of things I liked more in the new one, like the daughter is Ellie, right? Mm-hmm. When she's hit by the tanker and she first comes back, the one little kind of cross eye and the little bit of swelling.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite. It is. I'm with you. That might be my favorite touch from this.
Yeah,
is when he's got her in the bathtub and he's combing her hair and her eyes are like.
Well, I did like that moment because he realizes that he fucked up.
Yeah,
once he saw like he was combing her hair.
And it's coming out, and it's all tangled. It's just like Church's fur when she's brushing her fur.
And then he finds the staple. Yeah. He realizes that she is a dead person.
That was such a dad move, because you don't brush wet hair. You comb wet hair.
He got real confused and put beads in it.
Because brushes, you're supposed to do that on dry hair because it doesn't tangle. You comb wet hair. I'm sorry.
With a wide tooth.
My biggest gripe, I think, I don't know if it's my biggest gripe, and I like both of the versions for different things. I don't know. I don't know if I like the original more, or I'll have to rewatch it. But I didn't love the reanimated things doing their own burying. Now,
it seems like it breaks some sort of rule.
The exception to that, I did love, spoiler to the ending, I did think it was humongously dark when the whole family is coming to the car after having been buried and reanimated, and Gage is just in there looking at them. I thought that was a great visual. I thought it was a great idea and concept. So that part I thought was great, but I thought it had so much more weight. Again, especially in the book, where Lewis's sanity just goes completely. When Gage dies, Lewis loses his mind.
Yeah.
And it just gets worse and worse, so that when in the book, the scene where someone sees him walking into the woods with Rachel's body cradled in his arms after Gage has partially eaten her. They also left that out, by the way.
Yeah.
Has partially eaten and killed her and Judd, and he's so lost that even though he knows the horrible consequences of this, he's completely under the sway of the burying ground. And when she comes, like that last line in the book where she just comes back into the doorway and just says his name, that was so like, boom. Yeah. It was like the fucking beat drop.
I always felt like that was like the perfect combination of Frankenstein and the Monkey's Paw.
Yeah.
Like that novel.
Yeah.
And I do think like there was a lot of great Frankenstein type moments in this new one too.
Definitely. But like you said, I feel like there's something where if the dead are just burying the dead, well, why don't they all just do that?
I feel like they came back too normal. They should have been more like, what's going on? or not even talk or something.
What's going on?
But it's funny because in a weird way,
for non-living people,
in a weird fucked up way, the ending of the new one is kind of a happy ending.
I'm going to have to disagree with you.
No, because they're all reunited at the end.
Poor John Lithgow, though. He's with his Achilles tendons all dangling out.
Even though they're zombies or whatever they are, they're together again.
But they're not them. They're demons. I mean, basically, they're spirits inhabiting those bodies.
Right? Yeah, it's not them.
Regardless, I just want to see a sequel where they
where they go on vacation.
Yeah.
They go to Disney World.
Ooh, you know what I thought was real eerie was when he's talking to her earlier. They had the conversations about heaven and hell and how the dad's an atheist essentially, and she's like, "When you die, you go somewhere, but it's not what you think it is." Yeah. I was like, "Ugh." That was a chilling moment for me.
And they took, I mean, there's a similar conversation, I think, between Gage and Judd in the book. I think it loses something if it's not a living person making the decision, the very bad decision.
I agree, yeah.
To do that despite their, knowing better.
Again, it's a Frankenstein rule. Like, even Frankenstein's monster came to him for his bride.
Yeah.
He didn't go make his own bride.
Right.
And that's what makes it even more screwed up, is because you're like, well, I screwed up. Can I make it better by making the same mistake twice?
Yeah. Right. And the grief is so powerful. And then again, you're like, how much of it is the fucking burying ground arranging things again? So I think it's a good horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty good adaptation. I do think it's on the better side of Stephen King adaptations. I think it's on the right side of the 50-yard line. But
it's shooting 3-pointers from the 50-yard line.
Sports analogies.
A lot of metaphors to throw in.
It's really rounding second, if you know what I mean.
But
in the Preakness.
It wasn't exactly what I was really jazzed for this. Pet Sematary is one of my probably top 3 or 4 Stephen King novels. I love it so much. I've read
full
it so
length
many
or
times.
novella. I mean, like, I'm just asking, like, what category? Do you consider any of it flash fiction?
The first 1,000 words of it, yes.
Yeah. So, anybody have any last words about Pet
I just think
Sematary?
it's just forgettable.
I did want to say in the positive column, I thought Jason Clarke was really, really good.
Yeah.
And I thought he really conveyed being a good dad really well. I think the actress that played Rachel was, again, just, I think somebody just told her, just act like you're kind of batty all the time.
Yeah.
Or she just decided, like, this is a woman who's been through things. She's going to be very,
I did feel like Denise Crosby was delivering like a much stronger kind of character in the original.
She really, because that's not how that character was written. Like, she has some issues, but she wasn't a neurotic, like, just she was a professional woman. She had shoulder pads, remember? when she had to make it all the way home alone and hitchhike and everything, and the whole time her shoulder pads were perfectly in place, and she wore pumps.
I feel that was the problem with the new movie. Everything was too much.
Yeah.
Like the character, the way she played it and the way it was written, it was just a little too much. And the original was just more subtle.
Well, yeah, the characters in the original, they didn't wear their traumas on their sleeves.
Like the shoulder pads.
Like the shoulder pads. You had to dig. They had to be that moment where she's like, it's a very private moment where she shares with him the story about Zelda.
Yeah, I said this after the movie. It was like showing versus telling.
Yeah.
And the new one is telling you this is a you should be scared. You should feel this way. And the original like showed you.
Yeah.
And I did like John Lithgow as Judd.
Me too.
But Fred Gwynne, just again, he so completely inhabited that character. Like it was like he stepped out.
I feel he was
of the book.
He was given a lot more to do though.
That's true. But even so, like like that performance in the original, he stepped out of the pages of that book. There's this scene in the book where he describes Lewis seeing Judd at the end of the road when they first find Church. Like he goes out and sees him and it's kind of foggy and there's like shadows filling his face. And Lewis has this weird feeling like, well, that could be anybody at all. And in Mary Lambert's version, they get that. There's like, you see like his face is just like filled with shadows and it's like so perfect.
Yeah. I think that's Fred Gwynne's best work.
Yeah.
Personally.
He probably did too.
Yeah. I mean, I love Car 54 too.
Who doesn't love the Munsters?
And Herman Munster, of course, but no beating Judd.
No. It was really good. Unless
you could just find what would be his Achilles heel. If you wanted to beat Judd Crandall.
I looked away at that scene in the new one too.
I like how they played with you a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a fun tease too. It's like they knew you're looking for it.
Yeah. But that that one, anytime like in a movie, anything like Achilles heel is cut, it's like
yeah.
Did you see Troy?
Huh?
Spoiler alert.
Oh, okay.
Also,
that's a Greek mythology joke.
I didn't really like that Lewis like has to drug Judd. Like in the book, Judd makes a decision to stay up all night.
Yeah.
And watch for Lewis to make sure he is not going to come back and bury Gage's body. And again, it's like the burying ground is like putting obstacles in his way, making him go to sleep. And he falls asleep instead of Lewis knocking him out. And it's just, again, I just think it's better.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe I do like it. Well, I can't. I like obviously I like the book better.
I enjoyed this remake, and I
did too.
I love the original though. It's like there's a place in my heart for the original. This was a nice way to spend an afternoon.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely rewatch the Mary Lambert version more.
Yeah, and watch Pet Sematary too, because it's a whole different mess. It's something different than both of those.
That's with Edward Furlong, isn't it?
Yeah, and Mary Lambert made that. It was her taking complete creative control of where the story went next.
Yeah.
And she makes some really interesting choices.
She does.
Some of them work and some of them don't, but it's a really fun movie. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, and Damien, if you're listening, we still love you.
Oh yeah, Andy. We should say Andy was throwing shade at Damien Maffei on Facebook because Damien really likes the new one versus the old one.
He says it's better.
And you should have heard the two of them going at each other. It was like an abusive married couple. And I made sure Andy was posting as the show, and I'm like, Andy, you gotta sign your posts. Because I'm like, I don't want Damien to think I'm calling him stupid. It was funny, though.
It's like, was Damien buried up there and he came back wrong?
Oh.
I like it that Andy said...
Is that why he likes the original?
Andy said, I question your intelligence, and he said he questions someone who lives in the past. Yeah. We should do a Damien versus Andy on this one sometime. That'd be fun.
Oh, you guys want to hear a murder?
Oh.
Andy's gonna stab somebody over a movie.
A verbal murder. I'm not gonna really kill him.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much.